Okay, so let's kickstart today's session, right? So for today, we will be looking at Aussie dollar. The main focus will be on Aussie dollar. I will walk through the setups and also look at how we can apply price action, supply demand concepts, as well as market structure on this. So we'll take a look at Aussie dollar setup, right? And along the way, if you have any other chart requests, do put them under the chat. So just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing. I provide FX advisory to institutional clients. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions with regards to the recordings that you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're with us live right now, please feel free to put your questions under the questions chat. So just a quick disclaimer, the information presented here is not to be treated as investment advice. It's for educational purposes only. Okay, so this is the agenda that we will be covering for today. We will first take a look at the key economic events, following which we will take a look at our trade setups. So today's focus will be on Aussie dollar, and also cover what we touch up on Wednesday, right? So on Wednesday we covered on gold, and then finally throughout the session, right, we will open the floor to Q&A. So if you have any questions, just feel free to type them in the chat box. Okay, so before we hop on to review our setups, right, to look at dollar index and gold, let's take a look at the economic calendar first. This is important, especially if we are trading, right? We want to ensure that we are clear of the high impact news events. So for economic calendar, there are a few websites that you can consider, right? So let me just share my screen. So one of it will be forexfactory.com and the other would be Vantage Markets. So you can use either of them, right? So vantagemarkets.com, under education and tools, economic calendar. So this will give you a list of events as well as the time. So you can actually adjust it according to your local time. And these boxes that we're seeing here would represent the impact of these events. You can see the ones in amber are the medium impact events, and the ones in red are the high impact events. So coming up, what we have here, right, mainly the high impact would be data on Canada's labor market, right, unemployment rate data, and of course, the dollar, right? So mainly on Canada's data for today. Okay, so these are the ones that we will be seeing here, right? So you can also filter it according to the impact of the news, right? So let's say if you want to, you can go on to Forex Factory under economic calendar. You can also filter this according to the medium impact, right? So assuming that you only want to take note of the medium impact news events and the G7 currencies, then in this case, you can see that coming up, we have the Canada's labor market data. Okay, so this is for in terms of the high impact news events for today, which also means that if we take a look at setups, right? If you're trading on dollar CAD, for example, right, then this is when you want to be careful, especially when price approaches this news release time. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at Aussie dollar, right? Or even before Aussie dollar, let's review dollar index for a start. Right, so if we take a look at dollar index, again from our higher time frame first. Let me just remove all this. So you can see on the higher time frame on dollar index. So on dollar index, if you're on the monthly time frame, we can see that prices are currently sitting on this resistance turn support level here. So in this area itself, we saw a rejection of this level twice, sharp rejection of it. And if we were to put it in close, you see the same, right? So if I were to switch it in close, we can see rejection of it once here, hesitation before price broke above it, and currently it is testing this zone again. This is a picture on the monthly time frame. So we can see that prices are currently sitting on the support zone. So if we move down to the weekly time frame, on the weekly time frame, currently what we're seeing here, right? If you just take a look at the most recent market structure, prices are still forming lower lows and lower highs, right? So you can see this region, and even if we were to put it again in line chart, you can see that it's a high. We have highs pushing lower and lower. And then what happens after is that we have this move, right? So price continue to form lower lows, lower highs. You can see the new low that's being formed. And if we were to switch it to candlestick pattern, right now where we are, there's an equal high here. Equal low here, right? So price came in, it formed a new low. We saw a rejection of it once over here. Pulled back, right? Form a new low. And you can see that this was the previous low before it pushed higher. And this move itself, right? So one thing that we would like to highlight with this move, it's that you can see that when price comes into this zone, right? So this is the last high that was being formed. So if you mark out the daily structure, right? In terms of the highs and lows, again, we want to highlight the significant point. You can see that this last high that was formed caused the previous break in structure, right? So this high itself broke below the previous low. In terms of structure, you see that break below structure. So which also means that if price breaks above this region, the last high that we're seeing here, what this potentially means is that this could be an end of the downtrend, right? So when price pushes into the support level, we could see subsequent lower lows and lower highs coming into this support zone, right? And this is where the downtrend was established. So once there is an end, right, or if there are signs that this downtrend it's not going to continue, what we should be seeing it's a change in structure. So if this is the last high that was formed that caused that break in structure, this high here, what this also means is that for price to start trending to the upside, we need price to break above this high. So this high stands at around 105.80 level, right? So we need price to break above this high, this zone essentially, for price to continue to the upside. Okay. So this is the picture on the daily time frame. So you can see that right now prices are consolidating around this zone, right? And it's pushing to the upside. So just within this zone itself, right? If I were to move back to the weekly, you can see that within this zone itself. So previously I've highlighted the need or the usefulness of dojis, right? On the higher time frames. And dojis themselves are nothing but ranges on the lower time frames, right? So with that, how dojis are useful on the higher time frame is that if you take a look at, for example, a doji here, right? So let's take a look at this doji. So notice this doji, right? So if I were to mark out this doji, this is the picture on the weekly time frame, right? So this doji here, if I were to move to the daily time frame, you can see that the same area that was being highlighted, this zone, or even down to the 4 hours, this might be even clearer on the 4 hours, right? You can see that the same area that was being highlighted, price traded within this range, this support resistance area, right? So price traded within this range, this whole range, right? Which basically it's the doji that was highlighted on the weekly time frame, right? So price traded within this range before it broke the low, right? So the same area, let me just highlight this doji. So this is basically the range that price traded within, right? If you take a look at it on the 4 hours or even on the lower time frame, you can see that this is the range that held, right? So price testing both the support resistance level before it broke below this zone. And when there is a break of this area, right, this now becomes a supply zone. So when price break and close below this region, right, and did a pullback to test this area, once again, you can see that coming into this area here, price starts consolidating. And following that consolidation, we have that break in structure here. The picture on the 4 hours, you can see that price broke below structure. Right now, we could be seeing a potential pullback into the resistance area, right, before a further move down. So just taking a look at this region itself, right, so the most recent move, you can see that in terms of structure, if I were to highlight the highs and lows, again, significant reversal points. So if I were to put it in close, just marking out the highs and lows, you can see lower lows and lower highs being formed. Price broke below the previous low, and right now it's within this whole pullback leg. So if we're on the 4 hours time frame, right, and we're within this leg, you can see there are 2 factors that can account for this bearish move. One, it's price holding below, potentially a descending channel or descending trend line. I would say descending trend line, right? More like a descending trend line here, and forming lower lows, lower highs. That's one. So the question to ask ourselves is that if price pulls into this resistance area or this supply zone, right, that was found on the daily time frame, and it starts consolidating, and on your lower time frame, it's showing a change in structure, a break of the previous low, and a pullback into the supply zone itself, right? or resistance area would present opportunities for shorts, right? So that's the idea, right? So if we are bearish on the 4 hours time frame, if we're bearish on the daily time frame, we're trying to find resistance zones, right? Which can be in forms of lower time frames dojis to play this shorts. So in this case, right, you can see on the 4 hours time frame, right? So on the 4 hours time frame, this is the doji, right? So we have this area here. So I'll just mark this out, I'll highlight this in a different color. So this is the picture on the 4 hours. If we move to the 15 minutes time frame, what you can see again, right, highlight this range. This is nothing but a range. Price moving sideways on your lower time frame before it broke. And right now, if we do see a move up, right, we could see price push higher into this zone before another wave of reversal. So with that in mind, right, now that we've identified the resistance area, so stands at around 104. So I'll just mark this area. Right, so now that we have identified this zone, right, the next thing that we want to do is to identify the support area. Right, so on the support area, which levels could price potentially pull back into? Right, for one, we have this resistance turn support zone here. You can see price testing around the zone before it broke and retest this area. Right, so if I were to put it in close and draw a horizontal line across, you can see that this level itself segregates or divides the chart neatly and has been tested both as a support and resistance area. So you can see price did pull back once before it continued higher. So when price pushes into this zone, right, this is an area to consider. So if there are any areas of consolidation and signs of a change in market structure, right, this is when we want to get out of the position. We can't trade dollar index by itself, right, but this can be a gauge in terms of euro dollar and Aussie dollars, Aussie dollars and gold's direction, right? So gold itself is a dollar denominated currency. So if dollar strengthens, right, this could weigh down on gold, and likewise for Aussie dollar, right? So if dollar strengthen or dollar weaken, if dollar weaken, then we could see Aussie dollar, right? Ceteris paribus, Aussie dollar could push higher. So in this case, right, we can see price push into this level. And once again, you can use the lower time frame as confirmation. So if price does pull back into this zone, right? So if it pushes higher into this area, what we can see on the lower time frame, which we are already seeing right now on your 15 minutes, is that price starts forming your bullish market structure. So higher lows, higher highs, right? Again, you can see if I were to mark out the structure, and this should continue until price pushes into this resistance area here. So once again, if we want to use the lower time frame as confirmation, what we need to do is to wait for price to consolidate and show the clear change in structure, right? So once price breaks below the previous low, we know that in an uptrend, the low themselves hold, right? So when there is that change in structure and a break below the previous low, what this shows is that price could be respecting this higher time frames resistance. Okay, and the reason why it's important to wait for this is because we don't know what will happen, right? For one, right, price might continue in an uptrend, completely breaking this zone. And if that is the case, right, we will see this uptrend continue on the lower time frame. So if prices start to show any signs of reversal, right, that will first be reflected on your lower time frame. So that's the picture on dollar index, right? Let's take a look at gold. Right, so let me just highlight the picture of gold. So as you can see here, right, on the 15 minutes or 30 minutes time frame, we're seeing the slight pullback in gold, and this corresponds to the move up in dollar index. Okay, so on gold, right, let me just load a new chart. It's probably easier. Okay, let's take a look at the higher time frame first. Okay, so on gold, on the weekly time frame, you can see that prices are currently testing the support zone. Right, we have a resistance turn support area. And again, if we were to put this in close, you can see this sharp reversal. Even if I extend this across, this area has been tested as both a support resistance area twice, right? So that's the picture on the weekly time frame. If we see any respect of this zone on the weekly, right? So let me just put back the weekly zone. What we'll be seeing is that price would consolidate around this area here and start showing you a change in market structure. So on the daily time frame, right, we don't have much difference in terms of where we are, right? Previous prices on the daily time frame, it's still holding below this resistance area here. So this is another zone to watch, right? We can see how price reacted as both a support and resistance. That's the picture on the daily. When you move down to the 4 hours, we can see this region. So right now on the 4 hours, what we have, if I were to mark out just the highs and lows, the picture on the 4 hours, we have this price forming subsequent lower lows, lower highs, pulling back into this zone. And right now, what we see here is that this is the last high that broke the structure. Right, so price hovered around and it broke below structure. So if there are signs of a change in trend on the 4 hours, we need price to break above this high for more continuation to the upside. That's one. But as you can see, when price revisited this zone, this region here, right, this area itself was respected. So price came in, tested the high, and then once again push lower. But if the downtrend is to continue, right, we should again be seeing consolidation and price forming new lows. But that's not the case here, right? Rather, what we're seeing is equal highs and equal lows. Okay, so this is the picture on the 4 hours time frame. And if we were to draw an ascending trend line across, you can see that prices are respecting this ascending trend line here, right? So for this region, and once again, right, we have this area here, right? So until we can see a break above this, right, I think gold for now would just consolidate and we could be seeing a pullback into the support region. So if we're expecting dollar index to push higher back into the pullback zone, right, gold itself would continue to pull back into a demand region here. So again, for demand areas, right, so if we take a look at a 4 hours time frame, which are areas that we would like to consider. In this case, this is the demand zone, as you can see, right? So again, in forms of doji, we have this area here. Right, so this region. So you can see that this doji, if you move to the 15 minutes time frame, right, it represents a range, price trading within a specific range before we saw a breakout to the upside. And this breakout, was characterized with strong bullish candle, right? So when we see this strong bullish candle with hardly any wicks, right, what this represents is sustained buying pressure, and we could see price push higher. So right now on the 15 minutes time frame, right, we could be seeing, you can see that with the most recent moves, prices are consolidating around. It broke below the previous low, right? So we could be seeing a deeper pullback into this demand area here, consolidation before a move to the upside. So again, once again, you can see here, right, when price did a pullback, or if it's going to do a pullback into this demand area, which is the 4 hours demand area, 4 hours doji, right? So if it does a pullback into this zone, what's important to note is that it will start showing you bearish structure, right? So this will come in forms of lower lows and lower highs coming into this region here. Okay, so this is the area. You can see that price broke below this low, right? So again, we have on the 15 minutes a potential descending triangle that's formed. So this itself, right, price could do a pullback to retest this resistance zone before pushing to the downside. Right, so until price reaches this area, if we're taking a higher time frame or longer term setup, a long position on this, right, what I would do is again wait for price pushing into this zone to consolidate and reflect that change in market structure before it continues to the upside. So this is when I'll enter the long position. Okay, so once there's a clear sign of change in market structure. So let's go on the 15 minutes time frame, right? So let's take a look at Aussie dollar, right? So Aussie dollar, starting from the higher time frames. Okay, so let's remove all of this, right? So again, starting from your monthly. So from the monthly picture, you can see here, right, on Aussie dollar right now, prices are trading within this range, right? It's holding above an ascending trend line. And if you take a look at the monthly, it is sitting on the monthly doji here, right? So again, dojis are basically represents ranges on the lower time frame. So you can see on the daily, right, price trading within, again, the highs and lows here. Right? So moving, trading within this range. And once price breaks above, again, this breakout is characterized by strong bullish candle with hardly any wicks. And price did a pullback. Currently, it's testing this zone again, right? So that's the picture on the monthly. and also the trading, the picture on the daily. If you move down to the weekly time frame, what we currently have on the weekly is that we can see this resistance area or this resistance zone, which price came and tested twice, right? So on the higher time frame, if price ever reach this target, right, this is one we want to consider. And if you move down to the daily, so on the daily time frame, what we have here is that we have a last leg, so price consolidating around this area, breaking below the low. Right now it's pulling back here, right? So within this whole leg itself, this is the picture on the daily, right? So within this whole leg with itself, we need to ask ourselves if there are any resistance areas that price could potentially come into, right? So in this case, we can see this region. So this can be looking at price patterns in forms of dojis, right? So because dojis themselves represent trading range before price broke above or below. So you can move down to the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, at least where we are right now, I don't see any clear dojis, right? So not much here, right? And if you move to the 4 hours time frame, you can see on the 4 hours, we have one region here, which prices are currently testing, right? So if I were to extend this across, it's also a previous support and resistance level. You can see that if I were to put this level and close and draw a horizontal line across, this level has been respected previously. Right, so you can see this region so has been respected previously as both a support and resistance area, and price right now it's consolidating, it's coming into this zone. It's also the 4 hours doji. So if you take a look at the 1 hour picture, on the 1 hour it's still showing us bullish structure, right? How so? You can see that price still continues to form higher lows and higher highs. If we were to put it in close, or even if we were to just mark out the significant highs and lows, you can see this region, right? If I were to mark out the highs and lows, you can see price form a new low, continue to form a new high, new low, higher lows and higher highs, right? So within this leg itself, at least on the 1 hour time frame, it's still showing us a bullish market structure. We also have a potential ascending channel that prices are respecting here. So for a channel to be respected, we need price to test support and resistance level at least twice, right? So even though price might potentially be coming into a higher time frames supply area, right? How do we know whether this supply area is going to hold, right? This will be dependent on your lower time frame structure. If price continues to form higher lows and higher highs, right, could continue to break above this zone, right? But what we're trying to wait for, right, if we do indeed see a reversal or pullback from here, it's for price to break below structure, to form a new low, break below structure before continuing to the downside. So right now where we are on the 1 hour time frame, you can see that it's still bullish, right? We could be seeing a pullback from here, or rather a throwback into a support area. But in terms of structure or market structure, right, at least for now, it's still showing you higher lows and higher highs, right? So it's still a bullish market structure. So in terms of where it's a potential support zone that we can highlight, right? So one would be, of course, so again, back to the 4 hours. So we're trying to find on the 4 hours if there are any potential dojis. So in this case, you can see this is one area to consider. So this zone, and if you move down to the 1 hour time frame, you can once again see that this zone on the 30 minutes or the 1 hour, right? This represents a range. So we had this range, the price were trading sideways before the breakout. And again, this breakout, it's characterized by strong bullish candle with hardly any wicks. Okay, so if we do see a pullback, right, this is one zone that I would look into here, right? So that's one. And the other area that to consider, of course, would be just based on support resistance areas, this zone here. So you can see on the 1 hour time frame, right? This doji here. This is the other one that you to consider on the 1 hour. Right, you can see on the 1 hour time frame, once again, we have a doji here. Okay, so these are two regions, and once you've highlighted this area, right, once again, if price pushes into this zone, right, we can wait for consolidation of this area before price move higher up, right? So once you have found these levels, you can just take a retracement of the move from low to high and use this retracement as a gauge of where price might potentially go into. So in this case, right, we have the 50% retracement lying up with the first zone and the 78.6 retracement lying up with the second zone. So if price does push into this area, right, we could wait for consolidation. So this is the picture on the 1 hour. So on the 15 minutes, you can see that pushing into this zone, right, it will first start breaking structure if it does. And if it does not respect this area, right? What happens is that it will continue to push and form your lower lows and lower highs. But if it does respect this area as a support zone, then we should be seeing consolidation and a clear change in market structure. This might be accompanied with liquidity sweeps, right? Essentially price forming lower lows, lower highs, showing a change in structure, but having the wicks, right, wick below the previous low before it continues to the upside. So depending on how price reacts here, right, this is rather how price develops here, right, that's when we will take a look at the setup when price revisits this zone. Okay, but at least on the 1 hour picture, you can see that it's still holding above an ascending trend line or ascending channel. So any pullback into the support zone with consolidation, right, give us more opportunities to enter a long position. Okay, so that's the picture for me on Aussie dollar, right? If you take a look at higher time frames, so the general idea is to take a look at a higher time frame to help us to determine the general directions and any potential resistance zones that price might be experiencing, right? And if you move to the 4 hours time frame, you can see that these zones, if there are any reversals of these zones, right, it will usually be accompanied with a change in structure on your lower time frames. Okay, so if there are any questions or any setups that you want us to take a look at, do put them in the charts. I mean, in the Q&A box. In the meantime, right, if you want to take a look at our channel, our YouTube channel or previous recordings, you can just go to vantagemarkets.com under education and tools, educational webinars. Let's scroll to the bottom, right, and we should be able to find all this, the recorded series here. Okay, so the sessions are recorded, and if you want to review them, you can actually take a look at them. Okay, you can just go to Vantage YouTube page, and this would give you all the recorded sessions. Okay, so with that, I see that we have no questions, right? If we have no questions, that's all that we have for today, right? So thanks everyone. Have a great week ahead, and we will catch you guys again next week.